Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big ideas. Today, we're diving into something we all think we're pretty good at. How to think.
We're digging into Alan Jacobs' book, How to Think, and it kicks off with a pretty startling premise that most of us spend a whole lot of energy actively avoiding real thought.
So, before we can even get to thinking better, we first have to get a handle on why it's so incredibly difficult in the first place. Jacob starts his book with this seemingly simple question, but it's anything but. He compares thinking to something like buying a car. I mean, it's not just one decision, is it? You have to weigh facts, check in with your gut reactions, figure out who to trust for advice, and even make guesses about the future. Now, if buying a car is that complicated, just imagine applying that same process to the big stuff, like politics or justice or what you believe. A huge part of the problem is that our brains are basically hardwired with these mental shortcuts or cognitive biases, like all the ones you see here. And these aren't just occasional bugs in our programming, they're more like the default operating system. They are constantly pulling us toward the easy answer, which is often the wrong one. The real challenge, then, is finding the motivation to fight back against our own mental instincts. So that brings us to the first major hurdle we have to get over, this popular idea of the rugged, independent thinker. Let's go ahead and bust that myth right now. To do this, the book introduces the incredible story of Megan Phelps-Roper. She was born and raised inside the Westboro Baptist Church, which is probably one of the most ideologically sealed-off groups in America. Her entire reality was built around a very specific and very extreme set of beliefs. So she was eager to spread the church's message, and she joined Twitter to do just that. Her goal was simple: preach to the enemy. But then something happened that she absolutely did not expect. People started talking back. And not just with hate, but with questions, with humor, and with genuine kindness. One person in particular started gently pointing out contradictions in the church's own logic. He'd ask things like, hey, if the Bible says only the sinless can cast the first stone, and your own mother had a child out of wedlock, then why are you saying gay people should be condemned to death? And through conversations like these, the faceless enemies she'd been taught to hate started to become, well, they started to become human. And this is the key. She stopped seeing them as what the book calls a repugnant cultural other. That's the term for that group of people that we define ourselves against, the ones we see as so fundamentally alien that they're barely even human to us. And as that wall came down, her own beliefs started to crumble. Her story just brilliantly shows a central truth about thinking. Megan didn't start thinking for herself in a vacuum. She started thinking with other people. Her journey proves that thinking is never a solo act. It is profoundly social. It's messy, and it is shaped by every interaction we have with the people around us. All right, on to the second myth, and this one is a biggie. The idea that to think clearly, we absolutely have to get rid of our messy emotions. We're always told that logic and reason are king, and that our feelings just get in the way. But Jacobs argues that this view is not only wrong, it's actually dangerous. He says emotion isn't the enemy of reason, it's an essential partner. And to prove his point, the book tells the story of John Stuart Mill. This was a guy whose father raised him to be a pure thinking machine. All analysis, all logic, absolutely no room for feeling. And, it worked until it didn't. At just 20 years old, Mill had a complete mental breakdown. He felt he had absolutely nothing left to live for. So what saved him? It wasn't more logic. It was poetry. It was art. It was things that taught him how to feel again. He realized that his purely analytical mind was like a perfectly equipped ship, with a rudder, but no sail. He could steer anywhere, but he had no motivation, no wind to push him forward. So here's the crucial point. Our emotions are what tell us what's important. They're what give value to all the facts our logical minds are busy analyzing. Without our feelings, our reason is pretty much powerless. It can't motivate us to act, and it can't help us decide what truly matters. And now for our final myth, which might be the most invisible one of them all. The idea that the words we use are just simple, neutral labels for reality. I want you to just consider this one powerful metaphor. It's so deeply baked into our culture that we don't even notice it's there, but it controls almost everything about how we approach disagreement. And you can see just how pervasive this is in our everyday language. When an argument is a war, we don't discuss, we attack, we defend, we demolish, we target. The goal immediately shifts from understanding to just pure victory. This shows us that our language isn't just a set of tools in a toolbox. It's more like the architecture we're thinking inside of. This argument is war metaphor makes it almost impossible for us to imagine that a disagreement could be something else, like a dance, maybe, or a collaborative search for truth. Our words can literally trap our thoughts.
Okay, so if thinking isn't a solo activity, if emotion is actually essential, and if our words are secretly shaping our thoughts, where in the world does that leave us? What's the alternative? Jacobs argues that we need to cultivate what he calls a democratic spirit. Now, this is not about being wishy-washy. It's about holding your own beliefs with passionate conviction while, and this is the really hard part, maintaining a genuine, deep respect for the beliefs of other people. It's about learning how to be both firm and humble at the same time. And the book gives us a very practical way to start with this thinker's checklist. And notice how each one of these steps is basically an antidote to the myths we just talked about. Instead of reacting, you pause. Instead of trying to win, you try to learn. Instead of attacking a weak point, you actually try to build the strongest possible version of their argument. And most importantly, you have to be brave. Brave enough to risk finding out you might be wrong. So in the end, the path forward isn't some magic formula. It's really just a new set of habits. It's about making the choice to engage with complexity instead of just defaulting to conflict. So the real question isn't just how to think, but where are you going to start practicing?